This is a CIE A-level economics video. Today we'll be looking at utility, specifically 7.1.1, the definition and calculation of total utility and marginal utility, and 7.1.2, diminishing marginal utility. To get us started, what is utility? Utility is the total satisfaction derived from consuming a good. Suppose you have chocolate bars. The total satisfaction you gain from consuming each chocolate bar is referred to as utility. Utility is basically an economic word for satisfaction. Now, total utility is the overall satisfaction derived from a consumer when consuming a certain amount of goods or services. It's used to analyze consumers' demands and preferences. Now, marginal utility is the additional satisfaction or benefit derived from consuming one or more additional units of a good. This is usually an inverse relationship. So, as consumption increases, the marginal utility tends to decrease, and we'll get to that later throughout this video. Let's go back to the previous example of chocolates. Consuming one bar of chocolate may provide you with a certain amount of satisfaction. However, once you increase your consumption of chocolate bars, your total utility will begin to diminish. You'd reach a point where the thought of another chocolate bar would make you feel ill. As you can see on this graph below, as the consumption of chocolate bars is increasing, marginal utility is decreasing. Now, I'd like to focus on two specific points. As you can see, when you're consuming 5 chocolate bars, your marginal utility is 0. This is when consumption of a good does not increase total utility, so this is a point of full satisfaction. The second point I'd like to focus on is when you consume 6 chocolate bars. As you can see, your marginal utility is in the negative. This is because consuming 6 chocolate bars is actually decreasing your total utility, so this is a point of overconsumption. Let's get to marginal utility and demand. If we measure marginal utility in terms of a monetary value, then the marginal utility curve would be a person's demand curve. Looking at this table below, the quantity Q star provides a person with a marginal utility of MU star. If the price of the good was higher than the marginal utility, then rationally you would not purchase Q star of the good. Whereas if the price is set below marginal utility star, then you would be prepared to buy more than Q star, as marginal utility would be higher than the price you were initially prepared to pay for. Now let's get to diminishing marginal utility. So going back to the previous idea of total satisfaction decreasing when consuming an additional unit of a good and service is called the diminishing marginal utility. It's the principle which states that as more units of a good are consumed, the marginal utility of each additional unit tends to decrease. Economically, it's called a law because it's universally true. In a graph, the law of diminishing marginal utility ensures that marginal utility is downward sloping. Let's get to the formulas. So the formula for total utility is the sum of the marginal utilities of each unit consumed. The formula for marginal utility is the change in total utility divided by the change in quantity. Let's look at how to calculate total utility from this table below. As we said previously, total utility is the sum of the marginal utilities of each unit consumed. Let's look at the example of 2 chocolate bars. Our total utility is 75 because we're adding the marginal utility 1 and marginal utility 2. So 40 plus 35 gives you 75. When looking at 3 chocolate bars, we're adding MU1, which is 40, MU2, which is 35, MU3, which is 17, to give you the total utility of 92. When you're trying to find the total utility for 4 chocolate bars, you're adding all the marginal utilities together, which gives you the sum of 100. Let's look at how to calculate total utility through this table below. As we said previously, total utility is the sum of the marginal utilities of each unit consumed. Let's take the example of 2 chocolate bars. Our total utility will be the addition of marginal utility 1, which is 40, and marginal utility 2, which is 35, to give you a total utility of 75. Now, when consuming 3 chocolate bars, our total utility is the addition of mu1, which is 40, mu2, which is 35, mu3, which is 17, which gives you 92. When consuming 4 chocolate bars, you're adding all the marginal utilities together to give you 100. Suppose you're in an exam and you're not given the marginal utilities. All we have to do is look back at this previous formula. So marginal utility is the change in total utility divided by the change in quantity. Let's look at an example. When looking at 2 chocolate bars, the change in total utility will be 75 minus 40, and then the change in quantity will be 2 minus 1. You get 35 over 1, so your marginal utility for the consumption of 2 chocolate bar is 35. Let's move on to a past paper example. So in this question, the diagram shows the marginal utility that an individual derives from a good at different levels of consumption. The utility he derives from the last dollar he spends on every good is 4 units. Assuming the marginal utility of money is constant, which quantity will he purchase if the price of the good is at $10? Will it be A, 4 kilos, B, 5 kilos, C, 6 kilos, or D, 7 kilos? I'll give you guys a minute to answer this. Okay, time is up. The answer for this question is B, which is 5 kilos. The reason why this is our answer is because the first thing we need to do is to calculate the marginal utility per kilo. So it must be at least 40, which you get from multiplying 4 by 10. Now when you look at the quantity, which your marginal utility is at 40, it's at 5 kilos. A consumer would not purchase over 5 kilos because it's below the level of their satisfaction. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your exams. And don't forget to subscribe and follow on the other social media platforms.